Now, I want to animate the source so that it's not emitting continuously. I want it to emit by pulses. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to create a sphere here to illustrate what I'm going to be doing. And the sphere, I'm going to say the scale is going to be 0.1. Let's hide this one, or 0.2. Okay, let's switch to a front view, spacebar 3, turn on the grid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sin function, and I'm going to use the sin function based on time. And that's going to give us some variation, though very slow variation. So we need to speed up the time evolution. And for that, we're going to be multiplying the time, let's say by 5 or by 90. Remember that time, this is running at 24 frames per second. So at frame 24, time is going to be equal to 1 second times 90. It's going to give us the sine of 90. So at 24, we should have the ball, the sphere around here somewhere. Okay, and that's what we have. So now we have an evolution that goes from -1 to 1 every second. I think this is good enough. So we're going to be using this to control the density. This variation we're going to be using to control the density. But same as before, we're not really interested in using values, negative values. We just want it to be 0 or higher than 0. And for that, we can actually use a clamp function. So let's clamp the sine function between 0 and 1. And that way, what's going to happen is that it's going to go up, it stops, and then it goes up again, then it stops at 0, because it's not allowed to go below 0. Okay? We could also use, instead of clamp, you can also use something like an absolute. And this is going to give you the absolute value of the sine function, which means that whenever it reaches 0 and starts progressing towards -1, we're actually going to be getting the opposite direction. It's going to go up. It's always going to give you a positive value. And it's going to look like a bouncing ball. Okay, but we're not going to go with this one. We're going to try the other one out. Okay, spacebar 1, back to perspective. We don't really need the sphere. Let's go to our source, make it visible. So the idea is here on the points, and that's the advantage of having this process for creating a smoke source, is that you can create your particles or points, and you can play and control the attributes of those points with all the flexibility that you have on SOPs. And then you can convert them to volume and use that as a source for your simulation. Now we're going to be using point per angle to go through all the points and apply that variation to the density. So let's go to F, density. So the float attribute density is going to be times equal, which means equal to itself times something. And that something is going to be the clamp sine function. There is a slight change here, because when you're using the sine function on the expressions, it does work with degrees, but here it's going to be working in radians as indicated here. So we need to take that into account. So let's say at time times 3.414, the pi value. So this should give us 180 degrees. Let's give it a try. Forgot to tell it. It's between 0 and 1. We're not seeing anything because we're affecting the density, and we're not looking at it right now, but we can have a look at it here. Yeah, I think we have a nice rhythm. Maybe even faster. Let's change the value here from 3.14 to 5. maybe a bit too fast. Let's go back to 3. Or maybe 4. Yeah, I think this is going to work. So now we have our source, we have our animated source. I'm just going to choose an angle for us to have a look at this. So this is our complete source. I'm just going to go to choose an angle like this. It's going to go up. Let's create a camera, holding Control, click on the camera. Now we have our camera. I'm going to hide the grid again. And I think this is going to work. Let me just put it more like this. Yeah, now we can move on to the next lesson.